Priscilla is directed by Sofia Coppola, and it's based on a book titled Elvis and Me, written by none other than Priscilla Presley herself. The film explores the beginning and end of the tumultuous relationship from her perspective. Sofia Coppola has a very specific approach to filmmaking that necessarily shaped my expectations for this. She's never been one to densely pack her scripts. There's always been a focus on subtlety, never really force-feeding the subtext to the audience. And it's one of the many things that I appreciate about her work. So with that in mind, I knew this wouldn't be your standard biopic. Priscilla is a very ruminative film that communicates a lot of its ideas through the performances, similar to many others in Sofia's filmography. The focus is not necessarily to give you an objective documentation of Priscilla's life, but rather to subjectively understand her experience and the complex emotions that come with it. Of course, Elvis and Priscilla's relationship is quite dubious, as there is a very clear power imbalance and the obvious age gap. However, the film is not an Elvis hit piece, nor is it running defense for him. It happens to be another case where Sofia is using a notable name as a conduit to explore femininity. In this instance, it is a unique type of loneliness and objectification that is probed through the lens of Priscilla. Entrapment is a common feeling in many of her films, and it is used here to portray the lack of agency that Priscilla had. It is evoked through the use of static shots and conservative camera movement. Coppola keeps the audience at arm's length, as if we are peering into the world rather than being completely immersed in it. The lack of movement perfectly complements the themes, emulating this feeling of being tied down, and it has been a recurring tool used in her visual language. It's also something that tends to turn people off because of the slow, meandering pace of a lot of her films. But to me, I've always seen it as a sort of less is more kind of thing. Because there's rarely an emphasis on flashy cinematography, there is more attention from the viewer on the actors. In this film, we have a phenomenal performance from Cailee Spaeny as the lead. She is so great at depicting that naive intrigue and pairing it with an ever-present reluctance in everything that her character does. There's so much being communicated through her body language and through her eyes. You can see her admiration in the first few meetings with Elvis, but it's always mixed in with a sense of unease. Priscilla is displaced, and even without dialogue, Spaeny has a great ability to signal to the audience that she doesn't really belong in this environment. She's kind of walking on eggshells throughout the entire runtime of the film. There's a moment where she's sitting alone in Graceland, trying to adjust her seating position in a chair, like she constantly has to be conscious of the way she presents herself. I hope this performance gets the recognition it deserves. I could see it being overlooked because of how timid it is, and the fact that it lacks any grandiose emotional breakdowns or outbursts. But I think there is a really deep understanding of this character from Spaeny, and she'd definitely be one of my personal picks for Best Actress. Then there's Jacob Elordi, who is also great as Elvis. Of course, just a year ago we saw Austin Butler play the same guy, but it's tough to compare them. This is a completely different film that has completely different intentions. I was not a huge fan of that 2022 Elvis film, but I did think that Butler was like the one saving grace. I really can't speak to who played him more accurately because I'm not much of an Elvis connoisseur, although I did go to Memphis one time and I got to see his house. But yeah, Elordi does what the film asks of him. He has a certain presence and an aura that feels like he's teetering between a soft-spoken giant and an irate sociopath. I haven't actually watched Euphoria, but in the few clips that I've seen, it seems like he does a suspiciously good job of playing an asshole. Also, I was surprised to find out that he's Australian. His Elvis voice is pretty solid. Sofia has often worked with talented people, so all this is no surprise. But I think it's a testament to her ability as a director to constantly get these very focused and effective performances out of her actors. She pays very close attention to the small details in a performance, making the audience ponder a tiny shift in a character's posture or a glance. So much of her storytelling is left unsaid, making it a much more rewarding viewing experience when we as the audience piece something together or come to an understanding of how how a character feels in any given moment. Also, this film has a great soundtrack, despite there being essentially no Elvis songs. I love the use of Spectrum's How You Satisfy Me, with its inviting organ that slowly crescendos into an uncanny distortion. Sofia has a knack for great needle drops that really complement the film, unlike that really weird use of Doja Cat in Elvis. No idea what Lerman was thinking there. Really, I don't have many negative things to say about this film. Although I haven't put my finger on it quite yet, I did feel like something was maybe missing from it overall. I also thought the ending, without spoiling anything, was a little abrupt. By the time I reached the last 5 minutes, I was left scratching my head wondering if it was really going to conclude where it did. I felt like it didn't all come together in the way that I had expected, but with another viewing I might feel differently. Although Priscilla is sort of reiterating some of the ideas that Sofia has already covered, it feels a bit more revised and polished to me. There are some parallels between Sofia Coppola's own life and Priscilla's, with both of them being the secondary name attached to a juggernaut in their respective industries. It's clear that there's a unique understanding there. Priscilla stating herself that she approves of the film's adaptation. It's unfortunate how many have invalidated Sofia's work in the past because of her privilege, but I think there is an invaluable honesty and vulnerability in her films that communicates a feminine perspective super effectively. I can't say that I relate to her, as I'm not a woman and I'm not the child of one of the most famous directors of all time, but she somehow helps the audience come to an understanding. It's tough to comprehensively talk about Sofia Coppola because there's many different angles you can approach the conversation from, but overall I think this is one of her best films. Definitely check this one out if you're a fan of hers, and if you have seen it, let me know in the comments what you thought of it. And since you made it to the end of the video, you might as well leave a like, and you might as well subscribe. You can follow me on other platforms linked in the description. But yeah, thanks for watching.